everyone, and welcome to this week's Destination Dreaming. Today I am meeting with Meghan, and Meghan is from Nova Scotia, and I'm certainly really excited to learn all about what they have there. And I'm looking forward to going at some point, and I hope you will too. And let's just learn all about their area. So over to you, Meghan.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'll just pull up, I have a PowerPoint ready for you guys today.
Great.
I'm going to pull that up. Can you see me okay, Kathleen?
There it is. Yep, I see it. Perfect.
Perfect. So the first thing that I should mention is that in Nova Scotia, we are known to be storytellers. So I'm going to tell a few of my favorite stories today, and most of which are true, but you're going to have to come in person, get Kathleen to book you a nice trip, and you can find out for sure which parts maybe I embellished a little bit. But one thing you can get here is very large lobsters, like my little friend on my picture. And right now, actually, lobster is cheaper than chicken.
That's amazing.
While we're a little bit restricted right now, as soon as borders open, which unfortunately we don't have an exact date, but we're hoping this fall that you'll be able to book some trips through Kathleen and come and visit us in Nova Scotia. So I will start my presentation. I wanted to mention that I have lived and worked in Nova Scotia for the last 26 years. I came to university here, fell in love with the province, and have never left since. So we will get started.
Great.
Okay. So let's talk about getting you here. So if you're coming within Canada, especially if you're in Ontario, you might do a road trip. So if you're driving, we're not an island, although some people, because we're mostly surrounded by water, do get confused sometimes that we are an island. We're not an island, but we have an island, Cape Breton Island, which I'll talk about today. So we do have, you can travel by road from New Brunswick. We also have a network of ferries through Bay Ferries and Northumberland ferries that could get you here from St. John, New Brunswick into Digby. Or maybe if you were coming through New England, we have the Cat Ferry, which also comes or goes to the States. If you're visiting us and then wanted to go to the States, it goes to Bar Harbor, Maine. It was supposed to start this year, but got interrupted by COVID, but we're hoping all of those services are back and running next year. We also have some amazing via rail options on the ocean liner, which again is interrupted for now, but we're hoping will resume next year. If you're flying into Halifax, you're going to come through Halifax Stanfield International Airport. And so this map just shows kind of some of the flight patterns within Canada and in the United States. So most people, even if they're going to do an Atlantic Canada journey, will probably come into Halifax. They might decide to go up to PEI in New Brunswick and do a loop. I would typically recommend, if you're going to visit all of Nova Scotia, 7 days to include Cape Breton Island. And then if you were going to do Atlantic Canada, you probably would need 10 days. And if you're going to Newfoundland, you probably need another week as well, because they have a lot of roadway that it takes a little bit longer there, but it's highly worth it. So if you've got 14 days, we could come up with a great Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland.
Mm-hmm.
So in New Brunswick, right, in Nova Scotia, we have 7 distinct touring regions, and they combine to really make the perfect road trip. So if you're looking for scenery, culture, culinary, outdoor adventures are very popular now. And basically social distancing is really easy here because we don't have a lot of people. So we don't even have 1 million people here. So our roads are very uncrowded and they have very friendly people. So those combine to come up with a road trip that's really special. So we will start in our capital city of Halifax, a vibrant seaport that it has the second largest natural harbor. And you can see here, there's some cruise ships. So we are the marquee port of call for visiting cruise ships. On a normal year, we'd get several hundred, But this year, we're
It's
not
not
going to have
normal.
any, but we're hoping for next year. And it's a really walkable city, downtown Halifax. There's branded hotels. There's a lot of independent hotels. And that large star-shaped area, the green space in the middle of the city, is actually a fort. And it is called the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site. One of our top attractions in Atlantic Canada, actually, is the Halifax Downtown Boardwalk, which stretches 10 city blocks. And along that 10 city blocks, there's so many attractions. We have beautiful restaurants, museum. You can go out on sailing tours and just great places to relax. They have some beautiful outdoor hammocks, which are in high demand. And I'm just going to go over on the next slide some of kind of the most notable attractions, but there's far more than 4. I just didn't have enough slides or time to mention them all. So I'll just talk about a few of them.
Sure.
So in the top left, we have that large star-shaped fortress that I pointed out on the slide prior. There they have some amazing program through Canadian Signature Experiences. They have a program there called Soldier for a Day, and it's a great family activity, or anyone that's interested in kind of our military roots. So the gentlemen there with the guns are actually part of the 78th Highlander. So one top thing that you'll notice in the city is there is a noon firing of the cannon. And again, it's walkable. So most of the hotels are going to stay at downtown Halifax. You'll be able to walk up to the fort. Another thing, if you're interested in learning about the Titanic, we have a lot of history here. I actually, growing up, this is a lie, I swear, I actually knew a Titanic survivor. So, yeah. So she, and, as a child, I actually grew up in New Brunswick, and she was a lady that I visited when I used to volunteer with Meals on Rails. And I wish I would have known where I'd end up, because I might have had more questions, but because she was a young adult at the time, and she just has very vague memories of it. But we do, many people did lose their lives on the Titanic, and they were laid to rest at Fairview Cemetery, which is just on the outskirts of Halifax. But we also have Maritime Museum of Atlantic, which has a huge collection of artifacts, the largest wooden artifacts of the Titanic. So very interesting things like the actual deck chairs from the Titanic can be found there at the museum. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people come for that. And just off of our Spring Garden Road area, we also have a 17-acre Victorian garden. This is one of my favorite areas because you can grab a great coffee and also do some shopping in downtown Halifax, which for many of our, maybe some tourist shops, so a lot of people might come and get some tartan, some of their family tartan, or saltwater taffies or things to take back, but also boutique style clothing stores could be found in this area, designers that are just in Nova Scotia. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about downtown is our Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. Mm-hmm. So it's down just off the boardwalk where the cruise terminal is, and also our seaport market. There's a beautiful museum where over 1 million people started their life here in Nova Scotia. Very interesting to visit there and learn about that. Mm-hmm. I would highly recommend that as an activity downtown. And we're very sociable here in Nova Scotia. We do like to enjoy the odd drink when we're hosting people from out of town. And to pay tribute to that, we've created something called the Good Cheer Trail. So it's Canada's first wine, craft beers, and cidery tour and distillery that follows around the whole province and really celebrates all of the great things that you can cheers to in Nova Scotia. But one story I always like to tell about downtown Halifax is, of course, I had mentioned I came here to go to university. We do have 4 major universities in downtown Halifax. So if you're walking around in Halifax, one thing a visitor might notice is there are lots of younger people. And I remember once I was hosting a tour group downtown, and one of the ladies in the group, who wasn't very old, mentioned to me, she said, do you not have any old people in Halifax? And I'd never really noticed it before, but it's because of the university. So it's very vibrant downtown, but because a lot of these university students like me stay behind, or they decide to work in Halifax for the summer because it is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing we're noted for, of course, is our lobster, which we have a great supply. So if we can get the borders open, then we have all kinds of lobsters waiting for people.
Awesome.
And so to go around with that good cheer with all the libations around the province, we also have a lobster trail and a chowder trail. So you could have a lobster dinner, you could have a lobster roll, and Kathleen, I don't know how you prefer your chowder, but I like it really thick with cream.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
So there's different variations. Some people like more of a lighter bisque, but it's so hard to pick a favorite. But you know, when you come here and visit, then you can tell me your favorite.
Gotta sample them all. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So you can eat and drink your way around the province, and then it's a perfect. But you just you take turns driving, of course, because you have to be very responsible. But there's lots of options, that's for sure. And I've had a few people ask me, how fresh is the seafood? And so my best explanation of that is it was swimming in the morning fresh, because often you'll see the fish trucks backed up in early morning in downtown Halifax delivering the fish, because it literally was. We're very fortunate that way, so it lends to some amazing culinary.
And there's nothing better than fresh fish. It's just amazing to have such a fresh plate to have. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And just outside of Halifax, we're going to work clockwise around the province. So our next region is the South Shore, and it's most noted for pictures like this. It does follow the lighthouse route, but charming fishing village and coastal charms. There's amazing artisans that you will find, which are often sea inspired. And of course, our next shot, if anyone's ever seen a picture of Nova Scotia, they've probably
iconic.
seen or heard about Peggys Cove.
Right.
But Peggys Cove is one of actually 160 lighthouses. So we have lots of lighthouses. And someone once asked me, well, why do you have so many lighthouses? And well, it's because we have that rugged coastline. And we do have over 13,000 kilometers of sea coast to explore. But over the years, we've had lots of ships that have been lost. I don't know if we put the lighthouses up too late or what happened, but we obviously put them to try to keep them safe. But many, unfortunately, we did lose many. And along with those lost ships, many would say there's treasures. So one thing of note, and I don't know if you've heard of it before, Kathleen, but we have a famous treasure in Oak Island.
Absolutely. It is our family tradition to watch that every Sunday night. Yep.
Okay, so you're one of the viewers.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So there is a show on the History Channel called The Curse of Oak Island. And actually, one of the divers on the show, Tony, has a tour company called Salty Dog Tours. So if you come and if you're interested in treasure hunting, then you can come and talk to Tony. They do have a museum on the island. And while there are some restrictions on the actual dig site, you can go to the museum on the island. You just can't necessarily go to the actual dig site where they're filming. But the cast members are so amazing. What they'll do on breaks, they'll come down to where the museum is and chat with you. So if that's something you're interested in, it's definitely worth a visit. And then also along the South Shore, there are many seaside resorts. Oak Island has one. We have White Point and many others. And there's lots of history there. So this is Lunenburg. It's just over an hour from downtown Halifax. And it's one of 3 of our UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And you can see in the background, it has brightly colored houses, and it's considered the best surviving example of a British planned colonial settlement. So if you think way back when they were trying to convince people to come and stay here. They'd give them a plot of land in return if they would, harvest the lands. And this ended up being quite a big boat building community. And on the next slide, I'll show you our most famous boat, which was the Blue Nose. Mm-hmm. This is actually the Blue Nose too. And in Nova Scotia, we are called Blue Nosers, not to be confused with brown nosers. We're called Blue Nosers because when the fishermen used to go out to sea, of course, it was very cold. So their wives used to knit them beautiful, brightly colored mittens to keep them warm. And so if their eyes or nose were running at sea, they would wipe their face or nose, and the dye from those beautiful mittens would transfer to their nose. And that's why we were known as Blue Nosers.
Okay.
So that's one of my famous stories. You're going to have to come and see if what part of that you think is true or not, because there is a story floating around about a potato. And I choose not to believe that one. I like the mitten story. It seems more believable, but I'll let you be the judge.
Okay.
And so if you can imagine in Lunenburg, it's a boat building community. Imagine you're a boat builder and you build a house. Well, that's the other thing that's quite spectacular about Lunenburg is that when you're walking around, the architecture is just fantastic. It almost looks like the bows of ships. So it's a very interesting place to come and visit. And of course, one of my favorites, it has great shopping. Mm-hmm. So as we continue on down to Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, this is where we'll find joie de vivre, which is enjoyment of life in our Acadian shores. But one thing that it has here that some people might not realize is it has some of the best stargazing in North America. And so the reason why it has such amazing stargazing is that because we don't have a lot of people, we don't have a lot of light pollution in some of these rural areas. So imagine really dark skies and then dense forests. So those two combine to have amazing stargazing. Mm-hmm. So on the next slide, I'll show you, this is called Trout Point Lodge. It's one of our 5-star resorts that we offer in Nova Scotia. And they actually have earned the designation of a Starlight Reserve accommodation. So Yarmouth and Acadian Shore has a designation of a Starlight Reserve, but this property actually has the designation of a Starlight Reserve because it has made these beautiful platforms where you can see the stars there. And it's only a 12-room boutique 5-star property. And you can see to the right, they have forest bathing, which I'll make you look that up on novascotia.com because it's not what you think it is. So look up what forest bathing is.
Will do.
Yes, and you can see the lady that I wish that was me right now. They have this beautiful hot tub right on the river, and it's just so relaxing. Mm-hmm. So it's a great place to visit, and that's down. It would be about a half an hour from Yarmouth. Okay. And also in this region, we have our Kejimkujik. That is how you pronounce that word. I know it's a struggle if you don't know. Kejimkujik National Park. It's one of 2 of our national parks here in Nova Scotia. And here you can explore our First People, which were the Mi'kmaq. You can explore traditional canoe routes that they would have used, as well as 18th century petroglyphs. Oh, so within Nova Scotia, there is some amazing Indigenous experiences. Mm-hmm. And if you are interested in that, you can find that on novascotia.com as well. We have several self-drive itineraries to help you dream. I guess we're all dreaming of travel right now.
Sure are.
So if you go on, that will inspire you for sure. Mm-hmm. And they also have something very interesting called living wharves. So if you're ever wondering, maybe some people are maritimers, they might know the answer to this, but how do they get those lobster bans on lobsters without getting bit? Mm-hmm. And it's that contraption there. So fishermen or people in the fishing industry hold demonstrations on the wharf. They explain to you how lobsters get in the traps and how the lobster traps work, the fishing seasons. Things like, for instance, in Nova Scotia, we always have fresh lobster because our lobster season rotates around the province. So that's why you'll always have fresh lobster and Unlike some other places, we don't have to bring lobster in from other areas. We can have
Mm-hmm.
everything here in Nova Scotia, which is great. And we have such an amazing connection and celebration and pride with our Acadian culture. And Acadian is the name that was given to the French settlers that came over in the 1700s. The first recorded French settlement was actually Port Royal, and it was in 1605 with Samuel de Champlain. So it started then, and there's been so much history, and I'll go through that in a few more slides when we talk about Grand Pre. But if you're interested in Acadian history, or maybe if your family is of Acadian descent, then in the summer, typically in the summer months, there's lots of festivals in Yarmouth and Acadian Shore to celebrate Acadian history and culture. We also have the Bay of Fundy and Annapolis Valley. So the Bay of Fundy is the body of water that we share with New Brunswick. Mm-hmm. And if you're guessing what this shot is, it actually shows that we have the highest tides in the world. And so over to the right, where the tree line is, that's how high the tides get in the Bay of Fundy. So the highest recorded is 16 meters or 53 feet. So wow. 160 billion tons of water flow in and out of the bay twice a day during the tide cycle, which from start to finish is 12 hours, but you can see the changing at about 6 hours halfway through. Mm-hmm. You could walk for miles. And the other thing that is along the Bay of Fundy and those cliffs are actually fossils. So our second UNESCO World Heritage Site is Joggins Fossil Cliffs, which is along the Bay of Fundy on the way up to New Brunswick, where you can explore 300-million-year-old fossils.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And we do have 12 species of whales that visit Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. And the best way to remember when you should come see the whales is just thinking about swimming. So whales don't come up north until the waters are warmer. So the best time to see whales is in the summer months. I don't blame them because the ocean water does get really cold. So they mm-hmm. come up when it's a little bit warmer. And so these whales are actually coming all the way up from the Caribbean or places around Mexico to escape that heat. And we have so many whales that like to, I guess they're tourists too. We have so many that visit us each year that if you are going whale watching, many of the tour operators or whale watching companies will guarantee that you'll see a whale or your money back.
Oh, wow. That's a good promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's one actually called that. Guaranteed whales. So this is an very interesting creative, spot. Yeah. Yes, very creative. Yeah, so this is actually called a place called Hall's Harbor. And it's a great place to experience a traditional lobster pound. You could actually tour there if you call ahead of time and make a reservation. They'll do a tour of the lobster pound so you can understand how it works, like what happens when the lobster's taken off the boat, the processing involved. You can actually pick out your lobster and then take it over to the pot to be cooked. So it's a great spot to also take in those tides. So you can see this is a great shot of what happens at low tide. The boats are on the ocean floor. And if you come back, or if you're there for about 6 hours, if you time it right, around in between the tides, you can actually see the boats then floating on the side of the dock. So that's one of many places, but a good spot that you can eat and watch the dramatic changing of the tides. So mm-hmm. That's one of the spots I'd recommend, and that's called Hall's Harbor. And if you have an adventurous side, another natural phenomenon that happens in Nova Scotia during those Bay of Fundy high tides is that there is a river called the Shubenacadie River that when it's high tide, the water that is actually reverses the flow of the river and creates 10-foot high waves. So it's kind of like whitewater rafting, mm-hmm. only it's called the Tidal Bore Rafting. And then one of my favorites, and of course any child's favorite, is mudsliding. So what happens at the end of the rafting, when the tide goes down, then all these amazing mud flats are exposed, and they encourage you to go mudsliding. Now, I must mention that you do have to be 12 years old or older to participate in this, because you do have to hold yourself in the boats. Not the mudsliding part. Anyone can participate in that part. but that it is part of the tour and is optional but not mandatory. But don't worry, after you're finished mudsliding, there's beautiful shower facilities at most of the rafting places. So you can clean off. You don't have to walk around like this for the day. And then they usually have options that you can order, maybe a salmon barbecue or have a lobster roll or sandwich. A unique experience, absolutely. And another experience, which I like to pair with a nice scallop from Digby, our world famous Digby scallop, is our Nova Scotia wine. So a lot of people are surprised that we have a wine region. Mm-hmm. But in the Annapolis Valley, which is our agricultural region, we have over 20 vineyards. And the appellation that we make here is called Tidal Bay, which is very fitting. And it's a light white wine. And I'd say I serve, when we have visitors here, I would serve a lot of Tidal Bay. And I haven't really ever had a person say they didn't like it. So I think it's just a nice, crisp wine for summer. And it's very popular. But our wines have been winning awards around the world. So we're very proud of it here. And again, this is only an hour from the city. So there's lots of itineraries that you can do, kind of a hub and spoke from Halifax. But it's in here, because we don't have traffic. When I say an hour, that's not dependent on traffic. It's just an hour. So you can pretty much Google map it. It's easy to do that here.
Yeah, that's great.
And one thing I wanted to mention on the next slide, I started to talk about a little bit about the history of our Acadians. So Grand Pré National Historic Site, which is in Grand Pré, Nova Scotia, just before Whitfield, is that we have a very special place of remembrance for the Acadians that were actually exiled or deported in 1755 by the British. So what happened is we did have French settlers here, and because the British were in control at the time, it did make them nervous. So they asked them to swear allegiance, and they weren't comfortable doing that. So what happened is they were sent to various parts of the United States and the Caribbean, and many ended up in Louisiana. So that's why we have that special culture connection with Cajun culture. Mm-hmm. But many Acadians did come back. They settled along Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, up in Cape Breton and in parts of New Brunswick. So around the region, there is a lot of Acadian history to explore. Mm-hmm. And we have our Northumberland shore. So our name, Nova Scotia, is actually Latin for New Scotland, and because we do have a lot of Gaelic Scottish influence. On the Northumberland Strait, that is the body of water that is in between Nova Scotia and PEI. We also have 30 white sand beaches, which a lot of people might not know that we would have that in Nova Scotia. And we have some of the warmest waters north of the Carolinas as well that you can explore here. So if you're a beach bum, you would like this part of Nova Scotia. And in Pictou, this is considered the birthplace of Scotland. It's also, if you're doing one of those regional itineraries that I was telling you about, that maybe you're going to Prince Edward Island, not far from here in Caribou is actually where you would catch that ferry to go to Prince Edward Island. But you might want to visit here. So Pictou is really the birthplace of Scotland. It's the Hector is the ship that brought the first people from Scotland to Nova Scotia. So there's a beautiful museum that you can explore there in Pictou. And
looks so
now
peaceful.
Yeah. Sorry, Kathleen, what were you going to
so
say?
Peaceful. It looks very peaceful and very calm there.
Yeah. Well, it's very eerie when you have a ship and they're explaining to you. You can almost feel what it was like, because they were very harsh journeys to get in a small ship that was overcrowded. So it's I always find those sites very interesting to explore. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we're going to head now to Cape Breton Island. So Cape Breton Island was voted the #1 island in the Americas by Condé Nast Traveler. And you can see in the background, that's actually my favorite hiking trail, the Skyline Trail. And it's one of 26 beautiful hiking trails in Cape Breton Island in the Cape Breton Highlands National Park, which is our second national site. And the reason why I love the Skyline Trail. Well, the picture shows you, of course, the background, the scenery, but it's one of the hiking trails where you drive to the top of the mountain and then you kind of walk parallel. So I like hiking trails that don't always mean you have to hike up a mountain, but we do have those as well.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's nice to just drive and then see the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
You can see in the background that windy road was actually the Cabot Trail, and it is considered one of the most scenic drives in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because it follows a rugged coastline and then ascends the plateaus of the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. And
Gorgeous.
don't worry, we have 24 look-offs around the Cabot Trail where you can safely pull off and get that perfect picture. You don't have to worry about getting in a car accident trying to get that perfect view in Cape Breton Island.
Mm-hmm.
Made it easy for you. And we also have lots of wildlife that you can view there. So we have moose, bald eagles, puffins, and sometimes you can actually see pods of whales from the coastline, which is quite interesting. So if you don't get out on the whale watching tours, you could possibly see them from the coastline.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a museum along the Cabot Trail that has the observation lenses where you can look out as well to get you the best option. And in Cape Breton, there's actually parts of Cape Breton where they speak Gaelic. And it has so much Celtic influence that the signs are actually in English and in Gaelic. We have a Gaelic college. As well, we have more fiddlers per capita than any other place in the world. And often you'll hear of a ceilidh happening, and a ceilidh is a party. So
Kaylee is my daughter's name.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Is she fun as well?
She is.
Does she have a fun personality?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It was a good name then, Kathleen.
It was.
So yeah, so there's ceilidhs and it's a celebration with music and dancing and storytelling. And this year, for anyone that wants to tune in, typically we would have what's called the Celtic Colors Music Festival that happens in October. It coincides with kind of the changing of the leaves in Cape Breton, so it's a beautiful time to visit. But this year, we can't have it in person, so we're having a virtual Celtic Colors.
Okay.
So it would be a good opportunity to see parts of Cape Breton, experience Celtic Colors, and then maybe next year, Kathleen can book a trip for you to come and see those, see it in person.
And how do we find the links to join for that? Is that on your website?
The link, it's coming up. You can't, all the information is coming up. It's not live yet, but if you went online and put Celtic Colors, the information that we have so far will come up, but it's not actually live yet with the exact links and anything, but it's coming. I just checked actually the other day and it says coming soon.
Oh, super. Okay.
The actual dates. But yeah, it's usually just after Thanksgiving in October.
Okay. Neat.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
The town of Baddeck is a traditional stopping spot in Cape Breton Island, and it's strategically placed at the mouth of the Cabot Trail. So, for instance, some people might decide to spend 2 nights in Baddeck while they're touring the Cabot Trail. And its most famous resident was actually Alexander Graham Bell. So I hope that you've heard of him. He was accredited with, Kathleen's heard of him, good. He did invent the telephone, but he did work on many world achievements while he summered in Nova Scotia, so such as hydrofoil records and the first manned flight in the Commonwealth. So the Silver Dart, and actually replica of the Silver Dart, it can be seen at this museum. There's also another great programming called the White Glove, which is another one of our Canadian signature experiences, where you can go behind the scenes and actually see some of the instruments that he used. So if you're interested in seeing that, this is the place to be. And you can also see, he has a big estate there called Ben Bray, which is Gaelic for beautiful mountain. And you can actually see his home from this museum. And one of the last times I visited there, the staff were very excited because members of the Graham family, or the Bell family, sorry, still live in that home. And every year they invite all the staff from the museum up to the estate for a barbecue.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a great family connection that still exists there today.
Mm-hmm.
And someday their home may become a museum where you can visit. It's been talked about. But we'll see if that ever develops. But it would definitely be interesting because it's beautiful. And one thing I love to visit when I'm in Cape Breton is the Fortress of Louisbourg. So here, this is one of 10 of our living history museums that you can visit. So they have costume animators, and they depict life as a French settler in the 18th century. So they have era dining. So it's interesting about that. You can see in the picture, the water glasses. See, water was a precious resource then, so fresh water. So you just had a tiny little water glass, and your whole meal you would actually eat with one spoon, and they would kind of pass the bowl around. So you just would hope that you get the bowl first, because if someone was greedy, by the time it came to you, all that would be left was maybe a potato. So it's a lot of fun, and it talks about the different classes of workers versus some of the upper echelon of residents that would be there. So it's definitely worth the visit. And now we're going to head down to the eastern shore. So the eastern shore is considered the wild area of Nova Scotia. It's like the less inhabited area, and also least known. But again, is a great visit, especially during times like this. I think people are going to want to go to remote areas. So what we have here is actually 100 wild islands, so that you can explore by boat. So some people will sail in this area, but some of these islands literally haven't been touched in years. So it's almost like a rainforest within Nova Scotia, because it's been maintained. And one thing that we do have here as well, so we have surfing, which some people wouldn't think that we would have surfing in Nova Scotia. And this lady has a wetsuit on because this is not the Northumberland Straight. So this is the part of the water that's cold. So you're probably going to want to wear a wetsuit. But yes, we do have surfing that you can explore here in Nova Scotia. And if you didn't bring a surfboard with you, you can rent it. You can have lessons. And this is actually at Lawrencetown Beach. And one thing I should mention that I didn't get to mention before, we do have, this is Sherbrooke Village, which is another one of our living history museums. But we also have a fair amount of Black history that you can explore while in Nova Scotia. We have Black Loyalists, and we have many sites. And actually, I read an interesting article this morning that many of the Black history sites are going virtual, so you can explore them virtually and dream about coming and visit us another time. But yeah, I just read that this morning, so that's worth mentioning. So COVID has its restrictions, but it's a great thing about technology, just like today, that Kathleen and I are able to show you these things. That these virtual offerings are a good way to dream about your next visit.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's a goofy picture of me just before Tidal Bore Rafting in my wetsuit, or my rain suit. But yeah, our website is a good place to dream before you call Kathleen. Give her an idea of what you might be interested in, and then she can book it all for you. But there's so many world-class experiences that really do await you. This is actually at Cape Door, where they have a yoga and kayak experiences. So lots of unique experiences can be found for ideas on novascotia.com. Or if you wanted to contact me, that's my information. But the best person to contact is Kathleen to get everything booked for you.
Yes, absolutely. I love how each area is so diverse. It's all so different. That's really, really unique.
It really is. Yeah. So yeah, and the good thing about it is it's a drivable province. So you know, you're never far from the sea. That's for sure. When you're exploring it. So lots of exploration awaits you when the timing is right. But we look forward to our borders opening. Right now, we can only visit within Atlantic Canada, but if we all wear a mask and do our due diligence and keep everybody safe, the sooner things will go back to normal and we'll be traveling again.
This too shall pass, and we will be out there exploring the world. And I think we're really going to want to get back out there as soon as we can, just to see all these wonderful areas that we've missed out on. And I think it's great. I so appreciate you taking the time and putting this together for us. It's wonderful, and I just loved seeing all the neat history and culture. I'm a real history buff, and it was neat to see all the different museums and immersing in that history. That was really, really nice. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen, for giving us the opportunity to talk to all things Nova Scotia. I don't think I said too many lies today. I tried not to. But yes, if you have any questions, let me know. And then otherwise, I would love for your guest to be our guest when the time is right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this week's Destination Dreaming with Meghan from Nova Scotia. I certainly enjoyed learning all about the areas that they have there. They have such a diverse area in terms of cultural richness and heritage, as well as some really, really neat wonders of the world in terms of the Bay of Fundy and some other great stuff. The whale watching looks certainly something I would enjoy doing as well. If you would like any help with booking any of these vacations that you see here, please reach out to me. It's Kathleen at plentyofsunshinetravel.com. Also, in the bottom of the YouTube video, in the description, I'm going to put a link to the show notes page. And on that page will be all the things that I thought were really important or something I wanted to highlight. And that will be listed there. So make sure you check that out. It'll be a blog post right on my website, plentyofsunshinetravel.com. Next week, I'm going to be meeting with someone from the Belize Tourism Board. Deborah, I believe I'm going to be meeting with. And Belize, is such a wonderful area. They have Mayan ruins. They also have some, if you're into diving, they have some incredible reefs that you can go through. And it is a cruise destination as well as just a stop that you can go there for the week as well. So make sure you tune out each week. I also have a cruise chat video that I do weekly as well. And that comes out every Thursday around 11 o'clock. And the Destination Dreaming videos come out Friday at noon. So make sure you tune in and see all those. The best way to see it is to subscribe to my channel, so make sure you do that. Thank you, everybody, and have a great week. Take care. Bye.